So, Turkish President Erdogan has turned the Hagia Sophia into a mosque. Hello, welcome to Dangerous Policy. My name is Crispin. Today I want to talk about a development that has rocked particularly the religious world, but I think it'll have significant far-reaching and long-term geopolitical implications as well. And it's something that seems quite simple, but is yet dramatically profound. And that is that the Turkish President, Erdogan, has ended the status of Hagia Sophia, the massive cathedral at Constantinople, or Istanbul as it is today, as a museum, and has converted it and consecrating as a mosque. And that is the heartland, that is the epicenter of the Orthodox Christian world. So just from a geopolitical point of view, this will end, for example, any hope of an improved relationship between Turkey and Russia. Like, Russia will never look at this as anything other than an aggressive act. Obviously, the Greeks have long had problems with Turkey that they will not be able to deal with it. The Balkans, but pretty much the entire Orthodox world has been shattered by this extraordinarily aggressive act. So for those people that aren't aware, the Hagia Sophia is the largest cathedral in the world until St. Peter's Basilica was built in the early 1500s. It was the main church of the Byzantine Empire, or indeed at Constantinople, where the Roman Emperor Constantine converted to Christianity and founded his new capital on the Bosphorus between the Black Sea and the Mediterranean, and was the capital city of the Byzantine Empire that lasted from the fall of, continued from the fall of the Western Empire right through to 1453 when the Ottoman Turks captured it. It is the most significant symbol of Orthodox Christianity in the known world, and another faith has taken it and converted it to a mosque. This would be equivalent to someone going to the Dome of the Rock and saying, we're going to consecrate it as a church, or or Mecca and turning it into the new Rome. Like, it's such an extraordinarily dangerous thing to do. Overwhelmingly popular in Turkey, but potentially a crime against the faith. Like, it's a terrible, I personally think it's a very terrible thing. And I'm biased because I have a great affinity with Byzantium and Byzantine history. I think it's the most understudied area of history in the world. I mean, had a global, during a period of what was considered the Dark Ages, like, Byzantium was the epicenter of culture and learning and thinking, and its role right through to beyond the Crusades, the capture of Constantinople and sacking by the Venetians, and then its liberalization and kind of anemic end in 1453. It's just a huge story, epic story of continued tradition, and the schism between the church that led to the rise of Catholicism and the separation of the Pope from Rome from the Patriarch of Constantinople was a significant development. The massive defeat of Byzantium at the Battle of Manzikert in 1071, probably the most significant battle in the entire history of the world, because it completely reshaped everything that happened afterwards. The Crusades would never have happened without that event. And so Byzantium is it has a lot of history. It's very important to hundreds of millions of Orthodox Christians who pilgrimage there every year. And to have it turned into a mosque is an outright aggressive act. Completely unnecessary as well. Like, this was just something that Erdogan came up with himself as an idea that he wanted to pursue. And it leads to kind of my great regret with Erdogan. Like, I remember at the very start of his political career, running for office, I supported Erdogan. This is probably my biggest embarrassment in foreign policy, because at the time, in the sense of Turkish politics, you have the Kemalist tradition from the founder Amal Ataturk. Ataturk was the general who fought Australians at Gallipoli, incredible leader. And then he went on to found the Turkish state after the collapse of the Ottoman Empire after the end of the First World War. Now, he was a very secular figure. He was a very pro-Western kind of guy. He tried to make his government very pro-Western. It's the Kemalist Ataturk tradition that kind of wants to join the EU, to sort of be part of the European kind of modern world, that is very suspicious of religion. And the army, which was absolutely devoted to Kemal Ataturk, and with good reason, saw itself as the guardians of that secular tradition. And Turkey had a problem in that they were continuously overthrown, or the government was continuously overthrown through military coups. Like if the government saw that if the military saw that the government was drifting in an Islamist direction, the army would always step in. And here was this figure, Erdogan, who seemed like a real religious moderate. Like he was from an Islamist political party, but he would say things that seemed absolutely reasonable and things that I think any reasonable person would agree with. So, for example, because of the secular rules in Turkey, you weren't allowed to wear any religious paraphernalia in any government building. Now, the effect of that was that anyone who was a Islamic woman was not able to go to university because she wouldn't be allowed to wear a headscarf. Those kinds of rules were what Erdogan was running on. He's like, look, I don't want to turn the country into an Islamic, caliphate. I just want to make it equal for people. I want to make everyone be able to practice their religion and to participate equally in society. It was kind of hard to argue with that, right? So I was very supportive of that, and very much against continuous military coups, right? Like, so it was this. His rise to power was very much, a democratic kind of means, and now he has turned himself. Like he's got the absolute poster child textbook of how to go from democracy to autocracy. Like he's single-handedly made himself a dictator over the course of many years, and doing atrocious things. So there was that, basically invented a coup against him so he could crack down on his opponents, arrested 10,000 intellectuals and political opponents and throw them all in jail. He is waging a war on the Kurds who supported us against ISIS. He's just a terrible figure. And now he's like basically declaring war on the Christian faith, or the Orthodox Christian faith. Now, to be fair, right, and try and rationalize this out a bit, for a while, the Hagia Sophia was a mosque, right? Because it was built by the Christians in the 5th century, expanded and rebuilt by Justinian the Great, and then became the epicenter of religious greatness of the Byzantine Empire until 1453. But when it was captured by the Ottomans converted it to a mosque, right? So in 1453, the Hagia Sophia was turned into a mosque. Those minarets that you see there today were added by Suleiman. And the Blue Mosque, which sits across from the Hagia Sophia, was built in order to make the Hagia Sophia look small, right? Like the Hagia Sophia was the greatest cathedral ever until that time. And so in order to kind of reduce the achievement, visually speaking, because they'd captured this great city and they'd made it their new capital, it was kind of embarrassing seeing this gargantuan cathedral, clearly a monument to the Christian faith, overshadowing all of their buildings. So they built the Blue Mosque, which is an absolute extraordinary structure of architectural genius and something that the Ottomans were rightly proud of. And that seemed like a reasonable compromise. Like if you're going to if you've captured a city, why do you need to why do you need to take everything? And so the Kemal Ataturk, in his extreme enlightenment, I would say, said, look, we don't mean to trample the Christians who have every right to practice their faith. We'll turn this Hagia Sophia into a museum and allow everyone to visit there. We've got the Blue Mosque. We can continue to have our faith, and we're still, no one questions our Islamic tradition. So why not? But yeah, so this is an extraordinarily aggressive act, and I think we will see an implacable enmity from the entire Orthodox world towards Turkey and towards Erdogan. Like, I don't. After this, there is no going back. There's no way I can see that the Russian government could ever overlook this, that relations with Turkey could ever normalize, that, it's just, they will forever be enemies as a consequence of this act.